Hello everyone, and this is my review for TNA Impact Wrestling on August 5th, 2015, and this was their No Surrender special for TNA Impact Wrestling. They've been doing this thing for years now, actually, since they've changed their pay-per-view schedule from 12 to 4, that they had been putting some of the old pay-per-view names on some of the Impact specials to give them a little bit more meaning. And this was the No Surrender variation. And they started out the show with Mr. Anderson going up against Bram. A really good match between the two of them. You saw how they've been building up Mr. Anderson this time around, kind of saying it's like, oh, he needs to go to a certain place to try to beat Bram, but you know, does he really want to in that sense? Can he afford potentially getting injured, anything like that during this stage of his career? So you have this match going in there, and they built the match pretty well. I like the aspect of them having Mr. Anderson win with a surprise finish. You also get to keep the heat on Bram at this point because he was able to still walk out where he still kind of walked out ahead on the aspect that he beat down Mr. Anderson afterwards, and still has possession of the microphone that Mr. Anderson always uses going to the ring. So we'll see. Obviously, they're using that match to kind of build up for something later on. Next up, they had you had some backstage interviews in there talking about the Matt Hardy match later that night with EC3, with Jeff Hardy kind of doing a small interview in there. Then you had a in-ring interview segment, or kind of interview, basically promo segment, with James Storm talking about feeling betrayed and everything, about how with Koya, and feeling that he had kind of been let down by him as part of this revolution and everything on that aspect. And they built it up to where Koya turns on James Storm, and I liked where they went with this because though I'm going to call him Koya for now, I know he used his real name. I'm going to butcher it. I don't want to butcher it that hard, so I'll keep using Koya, but he goes out there, uses his real name, talks about how proud he is of being in India because James Storm talked down about how India was and everything in that case. So it came off as a really good promo, which led into a match later that night between the two of them. Very quick match with it, and you still had Koya coming out on top by DQ, and they're obviously going to try to build. I think they're going to try to build something out of this. I'm not sure if that's going to be the full-on case here of where they're going with everything, but we'll see where. We'll see where everything goes with that in general. You have the Dollhouse going up against Gail Kim. And it's a 3-on-1 handicap match, by the way. I'm going to be honest with you here. I don't really like the aspect of someone coming out on top in a 3-on-1, especially in this case. I feel like they could have built up the Dollhouse better, but they kind of made him just look foolish throughout the entire thing. You also had Tara Terrell kind of run off and everything in that aspect. I didn't like where they went with this. It definitely makes Gail Kim look strong, and we'll see. And you can see where we'll see where they're going with her down the road here. But this aspect that she went over 3 people here doesn't really come off truthfully believable, at least to me. But like I said, it also does this aspect where she comes out looking extremely strong in the end. We'll see where they go with it, and if they're going to continue with her in the Dollhouse in any way, shape, or form. So we'll see how everything kind of works with that aspect and where they decide to go with everything. The Eli Drake Drew Galloway match was a pretty good match, and it was rather short still, but I feel that they're still not done with these two in any way. And I'm glad that they had Eli Drake go over in this case. He's kind of shown over the past couple weeks that he should be kind of on his own, and I'm glad that they're having him go over, even in some kind of cheating aspect. He's trying to be a heel, so cheating aspects are right there to go along with it. He's a good talker he's a good talker on the microphone. He's good in the ring too. So is Drew Galloway, but they definitely have somewhere where they can go with this, with the both of them, so we'll see how that works out in the end. I felt this was actually a very good segment of the show. You also had some backstage stuff between Bobby Roode and Bully Ray and Austin Aries and everything like that. You had a promo between Bully Ray and Bobby Roode, and they're talking about Austin Aries' match and how he's putting his career on the line, and how Bobby Roode didn't necessarily like that. And you said that there, and then you had Bobby Roode kind of make a threat of saying, "Hey, something's going to happen if Austin Aries loses it," anything like that, and how he's going to try to, prevent that. Even though in Austin Aries' match, Bobby Roode doesn't even make an appearance in it, which leads me into the Austin Aries Rockstar Spud match. I didn't like the storyline build up between it, and I didn't like it in this aspect because it just doesn't. It doesn't really make sense to put your career on the line just to try to get someone's name in there. The match itself was really good. The match between the two of them was really good, and obviously this was a way to try to write off Austin Aries because he might not be staying with the company or anything like that. So they had Rockstar Spud go over, which was a really good match. I just wish they would have built up a more, intense type of storyline. It's like, oh, if Austin Aries wins, he gets a title match or this or something in that case, versus like, oh, I just want your name. It doesn't make sense in that area to put your career on the line just to try to get someone's name. Wish it would have been a little bit better of a story build going in there. The match itself, really good. I thought it was enjoyable. This does lead to afterwards with you find Bully Ray kind of knocked out with the chain, with a chain, and they teased that a little bit where Bobby Roode had a chain in his hand that was on Bully Ray's desk in the previous promo. So you have to assume that it's Bobby Roode that kind of took him out, and they'll probably do something in that aspect, which led into what I felt to be a very weird type of segment. And it seems like they were using this Bully Ray getting knocked out to write him off as well, like he's going to be gone as the authority figure already. And you had Jeff Jarrett talking with Dixie Carter, and then seemingly like potentially doing something with Global Force Wrestling and maybe making him the authority figure, something in that sense. And it's leading into something for next week, but just because it doesn't make sense with getting rid of Bully Ray as the way that they did in the terms of writing him off. Because, okay, he got knocked out. Doesn't mean he can't be the authority figure in some way, shape, or form. So it doesn't necessarily make full sense of, like, this is how they get rid of him as the authority figure. They could have done something else where someone complains and tries to get him fired or something in that sense. But this is the route that they went, and it looks like they're going to lead into something with Global Force Wrestling and Jeff Jarrett and everything like that. That could be interesting. We'll see where they go with it. Just the way they got rid of Bully Ray didn't really make all that much sense. This leads me into talking about the main event of the night, which was Full Metal Mayhem with Matt Hardy and EC3. Really good match. You've had this kind of build up ever since the challenges where EC3 and Kurt Angle got to pick opponents for each other. It seemed like Matt Hardy was going to get some kind of title shot in the end, which he eventually does earn his way into getting that, but it seemed like he had made a deal with EC3 in that case, which led to the Full Metal Mayhem match between the two of them. Brodus Clay, or not Brodus Clay, but Tyrus. I don't know why I went by his WWE name. Tyrus was not at ringside for the match, and this is a good way of building up, even building EC3 in a little bit more as champion. You didn't have to worry about Tyrus interfering in the match, and you had a really good Full Metal Mayhem match between the two of them. Good tension between them, making it feel like Matt Hardy might win in some cases, but of course in the end they decide to have EC3 go over, which I'm kind of glad that that's still the route that they're going. They're having EC3 go over in these matches, because I feel in the terms of characters, he's done the best over the past year. His character's been fun to watch, and technically in the terms of being a heel character, he makes you want to hate him, which is what you want out of heel. So he's probably the best heel they have at this point too. Just makes me enjoy it a little, and that just makes me enjoy it a little bit more in that case, and seeing how they're going to build up somebody to eventually beat EC3 down the road, whether it be at Bound for Glory or beforehand or wherever they're going to have it, happen. So this week's Impact was ups and downs in the terms of story building. Because I didn't, like I said, I didn't like the story going into the Austin Aries Rockstar Spud match, and the whole how they decided to get rid of Bully Ray as the authority figure. I didn't really care for either. So, but matches wise, I felt they did a relatively good job on most of these matches. You still have a continuation with Bram and Mr. Anderson. Somewhere down the road, probably something with Eli Drake and Drew Galloway. You still have something there with not Magnus, but James Storm and Koya. Like I said, I'm going to butcher his name, and I don't want to butcher it yet. I'll change how I say his name in there, because I know they've changed his name as well. So once I kind of get it down, I'll actually start saying it. So I know they've changed the name or anything in that aspect of it. And so you still have a continuation there. You have something, you had a really good match with Matt Hardy and EC3 in there. So overall, pretty good show. It had its ups and downs in the terms of how the stories were built around everything. But overall, a fairly entertaining show this week for Impact Wrestling. And that's my review for TNA Impact Wrestling this week. And I thank you guys for watching.